16. Neighbour-Love.
This discourse is called Neighbour-Love, and it addresses the commandment to love thy neighbor. This commandment first appears in Leviticus, in the Old Testament, and Jesus later makes it central to his New Testament. Interestingly, an important Jewish sage, Rabbi Akiva, who was born 50 years after Jesus, also claimed that this is a major principle of the Torah. This was not the attitude of Jewish spiritual leaders before that, so apparently it was something that was in the zeitgeist of first century Judea. In other books, Nietzsche talks about this period as the moment that a new kind of morality was born, slave morality, the kind of morality that he fights against. We can already assume that Zarathustra is not too keen on the idea that you should love your neighbor.
Ye crowd around your neighbour, and have fine words for it. But I say unto you, your neighbour-love is your bad love of yourselves. Ye flee unto your neighbour from yourselves, and would fain make a virtue thereof. But I fathom your unselfishness.
Neighbor-love is fraudulent, says Zarathustra. It pretends to be altruistic, but actually it is selfish. It arises from self-hate. Since humans detached from the earth, they cannot find joy in their existence, so they hate their lives and hate themselves. Thus, they use their neighbor to escape themselves.
The thou is older than the I. The thou hath been consecrated, but not yet the I. So man presseth nigh unto his neighbor. Do I advise you to neighbour-love? Rather do I advise you to neighbour-flight and to furthest love. Higher than love to your neighbour is love to the furthest and future ones. Higher still than love to men is love to things and phantoms.
In the previous discourse, we discussed how values were first formed by the herd, and individualism was only born later. Zarathustra says that this made the other more important than the self, and the decree of neighbor-love came from that. But since we are trying to create individualist ethics, we must discard this decree. Instead, we should love the future ones. Obviously, he is talking about those greater men that we are trying to create through his philosophy. At the moment, they are nothing but figments of our imagination, but they are still more worthy of our love than our neighbor.
The phantom that runneth on before thee, my brother, is fairer than thou. Why dost thou not give unto it thy flesh and thy bones? But thou fearest, and runnest unto thy neighbor. Ye cannot endure it with yourselves, and do not love yourselves sufficiently. So ye seek to mislead your neighbor into love, and would fain gild yourselves with his error. Would that ye could not endure it with any kind of near ones, or their neighbors. Then would ye have to create your friend and his overflowing heart out of yourselves.
The phantom that he talks about here is the better self that we can imagine. Zarathustra wants us to turn this phantom into flesh and bones, that is, start living according to this ideal, become better men. Instead, most people escape themselves. They hate what they are now, and fear going through the arduous process of self-surpassing that will make them better. So they find solace in their neighbor, who tells them that they are actually wholesome people and worthy of his love. This makes them forget how much they hate themselves, for a while. But it is a lie. The neighbor only says it because they are bound by the commandment to love thy neighbor. As an alternative, Zarathustra once again presents the friend. This is the friend that he talked about in the discourse by that name, someone who is an individualist who works to better himself. Such a person loves themselves and is overflowing with their inner content, which they want to share with others. Thus, they seek your friendship not to escape themselves, but to share themselves. And they don't lie to you about who you are, but rather challenge you to be better. Note, however, that Zarathustra says that you create this friend out of yourself. It seems that he is talking about an imaginary friend. There are no people around him who are of the type he speaks of.
Ye call in a witness when ye want to speak well of yourselves, and when ye have misled him to think well of you, ye also think well of yourselves. Not only doth he lie who speaketh contrary to his knowledge, but more so he who speaketh contrary to his ignorance, And thus speak ye of yourselves in your intercourse, and belie your neighbour with yourselves. Thus saith the fool, Association with men spoileth the character, especially when one hath none.
Now he returns his gaze to the relationship between neighbors, those who love each other not for who they are, but because God told them to. It is nothing but a lie upon a lie. We believe the good things that our neighbors tell us about ourselves, and we start to act according to them, thus presenting a character for our neighbors. It is nothing but a charade. The words he puts in the mouth of the fool are actually quite close to what he says, and it seems that he suggests that there is truth to what the fool says. But Zarathustra doesn't preach that all associations with others spoil the character. There are positive associations, like with the friend.
The one goeth to his neighbour because he seeketh himself, and the other because he would fain lose himself. Your bad love to yourselves maketh solitude a prison to you. The furthest ones are they who pay for your love to the near ones, and when there are but 5 of you together, a 6th must always die.
Self-hate makes it very hard for people to be in solitude, so they escape to their neighbor. But in that, they are killing their ability to find healthy relationships. Those who can be your friend are always far away from you, because they are individualists. When you mingle with the crowd of your neighbors, you are denying yourself the ability to find a friend.
I love not your festivals either. Too many actors found I there, and even the spectators often behaved like actors. Not the neighbour do I teach you, but the friend. Let the friend be the festival of the earth to you, and a foretaste of the Superman.
As we've heard before, Zarathustra uses the word actor for someone who isn't being true to their nature, but playing the character they believe would endear them to other people. The festivals, those allegedly big gatherings of human friendship, are actually nothing but the gathering of actors. He advises us to ditch them and seek a real festival, in which we get together with friends who are true to their nature, and thus connect to the earth. This type of people is a foretaste of the Superman, a step in that direction.
I teach you the friend and his overflowing heart, but one must know how to be a sponge if one would be loved by overflowing hearts. I teach you the friend in whom the world standeth complete, a capsule of the good, the creating friend, who hath always a complete world to bestow.
Previously, he talked about rivalry between friends, about how you should maintain your individuality and not be swallowed up by the strong personality of your friend. Here he talks about the other side of it. At times, you should be a sponge and open up to your friend's influence. Take from them all the good that they have to offer you. The individualist is one who creates, and is thus a whole world, a world that they are willing to bestow on those who are prepared for it. By opening up to them, you add the new world to your own personal universe.
And as the world unrolled itself for him, so rolleth it together again for him in rings, as the growth of good through evil, as the growth of purpose out of chance. Let the future and the furthest be the motive of thy today. In thy friend shalt thou love the Superman as thy motive. My brethren, I advise you not to neighbour-love. I advise you to furthest love. Thus spake Zarathustra.
The friend is the creator. After they give you their world, it doesn't mean that they lost their uniqueness, because they keep on rolling and creating themselves anew, becoming new worlds. When one does that, they are gradually transforming every evil into good, and everything chance into part of their purpose. The ultimate purpose of all of this is the Superman, the state in which everything has been turned into good, and your friendship pushes both of you towards that purpose. The furthest love that he talks about is the love of the Superman, the furthest thing from what you are right now, the highest ideal you can aspire to. You should therefore love that imaginary image of yourself as a Superman, and make it the motive of your existence. This will give purpose to your present moment, and the target to aim at that will pull you even higher. So forget about your neighbors, and direct yourself towards that target.